Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished attendees, peace and God's mercy be upon you. This is the final session in the 12th Gulf Studies Forum after 2 days that have been grueling. And I speak for myself here. This is the closing session under the title The Ontology of Social Media. Last year, the Arab Center had a conference on social media, and I was in the preparatory committee. And what drew my attention is that it was a philosophical approach to social media, how to revise oneself and how social media force us to revise ourselves and our relations to the surrounding parties. So in this Gulf Forum, perhaps these two papers to conclude the forums are the only ones that adopt this philosophical approach in perceiving social media. In this session, we will have two researchers, Dr. Ahmed Al-Khaldi and Mr. Nasser Al-Ghilani. They will each present their papers. We'll start with Dr. Ahmed. The title of his paper is Question the Effect of Social Media on Users' Westernization, Lifestyle Dimensions, and Materialism in the Arabian Gulf, the Case of Kuwait. He is Associate Professor of International Relations at Qatar University, holds PhD in Conflict Management from the University of Edinburgh. He has assumed many positions in management, teaching in British, Australian, and Middle Eastern universities, and was an arbitrator in various juries, and he has been editor-in-chief in Interdisciplinary Social Sciences Studies. His research focuses on consumer behavior through digital analysis. You have around 20 minutes. Go ahead, please. Floor is yours. Peace and God's mercy be upon you. The paper is in English, but I can see that there is unanimity to present in Arabic, so no problem. There are some terms that might be in English, but there's no problem with that. So, the approach of this research paper might be different. This is an academic research paper. There is a theoretical background, methodology, statistical analysis, outcomes, and recommendations. And because we don't have enough time, we will talk about literature and then talk about the statistical analysis, because this is the main contribution here. The title of the research paper is The Effect of Social Media Involvement or Engagement on 5 variables, 3 of which are related to lifestyle dimensions, which we will talk about, and 2 other variables related to westernization and materialism. And the sample was taken from Kuwait. Though the main two objectives is to explore the current social media engagement level of Kuwaiti consumers and to examine the influence of social media usage on lifestyle, westernization, and the other five variables. So we will move on to the definition of variables for the lack of sufficient time. Social media engagement is defined as behaviors that reflect the importance of engagement and interaction on social media for a user. These behaviors might include likes, comments, shares, any type of behavior that could reflect interest. In this case, these behaviors increasing these behaviors means there's more engagement, and decreasing them means less engagement. This all has marketing reflections. It increases brand awareness, trafficking, sales for companies, but this is not the topic of my research paper. The topic of my research paper is the impact of social media on the consumers themselves. So, as for the social media engagement around the world, there is very high engagement. Research says 80% of consumers have purchased products after seeing it recommended by an influencer, and this intersects with what was said by my colleagues about the impact of influencers and regulating these efforts. Research says that there's around 60% of social media users who bought unplanned products because of exposure to social media. And one factor increased at an international level, at the Gulf level, at the Arab world level was the COVID-19 pandemic, where everyone was locked in their houses. Social media was the main tool for communication, and this increased this engagement. So for Kuwait, numbers say that there is around 96% of the population in Kuwait that are users of social media. It's part of their daily life, and it's part of the forces impacting opinions, values, and trends. And this caused in Kuwait, as per research papers, but because we don't have time, we will not detail these research papers. This has fueled a trend of impulsive buying, overbuying. Now we will discuss the first variable. The outline of the first three variables are the dimensions of lifestyle. Academically, lifestyle is measured using AOI, which is consumers' activities, interests, and opinions. AIO or AOI. So, for the purpose of the study, we will choose the activities to be represented by impulsive buying. The interest will be represented by attention to social comparison, and we will speak into details about the definitions of these terms. So, comparing oneself to the images of others on social media. As for the opinion, we will choose the level of satisfaction about the self, the body image. And for the purpose of the research, we will have covered the AOI. So impulsive buying is unplanned buying. Usually this is emotional buying, where the consumer feels a severe emotional desire to buy something immediately, and this desire has emotional reflections, and in consumer psychology, this desire or this urge, it is beyond a desire, it's an urge. It's an urge. Because of this urge, the mental purchase mindset or the decision-making processes in your brain are completely inhibited, and this is called impulsive buying. I will not go into details. There are research papers in the Gulf and worldwide that say that there is positive impact of social media engagement and impulsive buying, especially in Arab, Kuwaiti, or Gulf consumers, or the international consumers. This is hypothesis one. Social media engagement has a significant positive effect on consumers' compulsive buying online. The second variable is social comparison. Social comparison is the act of evaluating oneself against others, and the final result is in the appreciation of oneself against others. So I evaluate myself based on X and Y and Z of people online. What's dangerous about this is that this social comparison online might be done subconsciously, so the brain might do it unconsciously, so it's not intentional. I don't want to compare myself to others, but I find myself doing that due to my exposure to social media. I compare to myself to X and Y and Z of people. Again, there's a great deal of research that talks about self-esteem, self-respect, and its relation to using social media and the skewed awareness of reality and its relation to comparing oneself to others, because the reality on social media is idealistic, too perfect, utopic even. So I'm comparing myself to something that is not realistic, it's only on social media, and this causes declining self-esteem and a negative self-image. Hypothesis 2 says social media engagement significantly increases consumers' attention to online social comparison. The third variable, and we're still talking about the lifestyle dimension here, the third variable is satisfaction with the body image. And this is completely different from comparison. So how handsome I am, how fat I am, how tall I am. We're talking about the body image here. The comparison might be done online, and it's subjective comparison as per one's cognition or awareness of their image, and how social media creates dissatisfaction of that self-image for the same reason, because social media depicts an ideal world, and this dissatisfaction has cognitive and emotional reflections. Young people are more prone to develop a negative body image. Women, of course, which is expected, are more prone to that. And research says that women, especially in the Gulf region, are have more propensity to do impulsive buying than men. And here, this is hypothesis 3. Social media engagement has a significant adverse effect on consumer satisfaction with hers or her self-body image. Materialism in consumers is defined as the degree to which a person views position and their acquisition as a source of fulfillment and happiness. So, this position achieves fulfillment, happiness, and importance of myself. And this is called materialism. And research says that social media affects consumer materialism to a large extent and creates something which is called the waste culture. So there is a culture of wasting things. This takes me to hypothesis 4. Social media engagement has a significant positive effect on consumers' materialism. Last but not least is westernization, which can be defined as the adoption of Western culture in relation to preferences, behaviors, purchasing patterns, language, use of language, food habits. Do you eat hummus or do you eat cornflakes? This specifies the degree of westernization. This is a simple example, but we have really deep measuring tools. Research says that social media engagement influences consumer materialism to a large extent because it neutralizes the national basic identity at the expense of the westernized identity. American identity specifically, there is a great deal of detailed research about social media. One of these research papers says that the English language is the dominant language on Twitter. 88% of users in the UAE use it. 87% in Qatar, 81% in Bahrain, 78% in Kuwait, 60% in Oman and Saudi Arabia. This shows the level of westernization in consumers. And this is the last hypothesis. Social media engagement has a significant positive effect on westernization. So we had a convenience sample. It wasn't a randomized sample of Kuwaiti consumers with an online survey, and we got 514 usable responses. The variables were measured with a Likert scale and were analyzed with the SPSS. So moving forward to the findings, we verified the reliability using Cronbach alpha. This is statistical, might not be of interest to you, but this is a measure that is reliable in the interpretation of results. When it's over 60%, then it means it's reliable. You can find these 5 scales over 85%. So hypothesis 1, using this analysis, y equals x plus b. But sorry, before all of that, the first objective is the exploration of social media engagement in Kuwaiti consumers. And it turned out that most Kuwaiti consumers, 51% of the sample has moderate use social media moderately, so they don't have a very high level of engagement. As for hypothesis 1, regression analysis and a linear equation, we can find the number highlighted in yellow, 77.5, the impact of social media on impulsive buying. So the more engagement in social media by 1 point, you have more impulsive buying by 0.77 points. So 77% of social media engagement. And we will go back to the number highlighted in blue, and significance levels show me that these are real values. This is a statistical detail that might not be of interest to you. As for the second hypothesis, it turns out that there is positive, huge impact by social media on social comparison. So the more the social media increases by 1 degree, then social comparison is increased 75% of that degree. As for the third hypothesis, it has the largest impact. The more social media impact increases by 1 degree, the less satisfaction with the body image people have by 84% of the degree. This is a very high level. And as for hypothesis 4, the more social media engagement increases by 1 degree, the more consumer materialism increases by 75% of the degree. As for hypothesis 5, this one is very strong as well. The more social media engagement increases by 1 degree, we have westernization by 81% of the degree. And this is just a word of reference. In behavioral sciences and consumer psychology, any impact over 55% in regression to 60% is strong, and it's different from applied sciences. So when you talk about an impact of 81%, that is extremely powerful. So I missed mentioning something, but allow me to mention it because it's very important. The R square represents the independent variable's ability to interpret the associated variables movement. So 60% of the variables in impulsive buying can be explained by one variable, which is social media engagement. 59% of changes in the social comparison online can be interpreted with social media engagement. Again, there is 79.8% of the dissatisfaction with body image can be explained with social media engagement, and 53% of changes in materialism can be explained with social media engagement, and 64.7% of westernization changes can be explained with social media engagement. The highest impact and the most severe impact in social media was with the dissatisfaction of the body image in the first degree, followed by westernization, followed by impulsive buying, followed by attention to comparison and materialism, and last but not least, we attempted to find the impact of social media engagement on the connections or the interconnections between these 5 variables. So if we move away social media or put it back, how do they affect each other? So we used a partial correlation and the Pearson correlation. And so in this table, we use controlling for the effect of social media engagement. So statistically, we neutralize the force that is applied with social media on any relation. For example, on the relationship between impulsive buying and social comparison. So the the relation between impulsive buying and social comparison, it says the correlation is 92%. This is when we completely neutralize social media. I will not go into details, but this is the outcome that we got comparing the first table that you can see on the screen without the impact of social media engagement and the second table with the impact of social media engagement. If you look at the example that we mentioned, the first one is 92% is the correlation between impulsive buying and social comparison, and the second one, when we apply the impact of social media, it increases to 97%. This applies to all 5 variables. So the main finding, the final finding, in addition to the impact that we have proven statistically, the finding is that social media plays another role so that these variables affect one another in a more severe manner. So materialism affects dissatisfaction with the body image, and dissatisfaction with the body image will affect westernization in a more severe manner with social media engagement. Last but not least, the recommendation: we need to monitor the social adverse impact, and I join my other colleagues in relation to the ethical regulation and legal regulation of these things, and we need to have several institutions that monitor this impact, especially in the Gulf region and in Kuwait particularly, because purchases are quite easy, the income is high, and the ability to be impacted or influenced is quite high.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your presentation. A very rich paper indeed, through which you used a quantitative method approach on westernization and materialism. Now we move to Mr. Saleh Al-Ghidani, who will be introducing on the effect of social media on users in Oman. Is an assistant secretary at the Ministry of Communications. He got his master's from Sussex University. He is also a critic in literature studies, and he has a number of articles to his name, and he has chapters in books and peer-reviewed articles. He contributed to a book on Abdurrahman Munif. He has 2 collections, stories. I give him the floor now.
Peace and God's mercy be upon you. First, I would like to thank those responsible for organizing this forum for their generous invitation, and I thank you for attending. You are the ones who lasted until the end, so thank you very much. The title of my paper is the question of being and the being of Omanis on social media. The paper tries to examine the possibility of asking a question about the being of social media based on the concept of Heidegger of the being of technology and its concepts about being and the real being and the fake being, and to test this philosophical concept in light of the Omani experience, Omani protests experience between February 2011 until May 2011 and its repercussions until 2012. And so in the beginning, I will try to explain and simplify this philosophical concept and then look into its manifestations in the Omani experience. First, we should indicate that asking a question about the being of social media and this metaphysical ontological way is not attractive for philosophical contemporary studies or for media and cultural studies. However, what necessitates asking this question is the growing influence of social media platforms, which are now dominating the public spheres, political, social, and economic. They are swallowing this realistic life. We are now exist in digital spheres, and perhaps some people on these exist on these platforms more than they exist in real life, and their relationships and communications are stronger with people via these platforms. And all of this necessitates asking the question about the being of these means. But most studies nowadays focus on social media platforms as a tool, in terms of their role, their functions, traits, and analysis of their content. Of course, all of that is important and enriching. But since we haven't asked the philosophical question about the being of these social media platforms, we will remain far away from understanding their identity or the being of this this digital technology. Let's go further in the question and say that the being of digital technology, including social media platforms, is not something that is technological, but rather a philosophical, theoretical concept. This is incredibly important to distinguish between the technological tool as something that we may perceive with our senses and a concept that is theoretical and we conceive it with our mental conceptualization. And so this issue in particular is the reason for misunderstanding of the Heidegger concept on the being of technology. Heidegger says explicitly and clearly that the being of technology is not something that is technological or technical. So what does he mean by the being of technology? Heidegger believes that the being of technology is exposure and extraction. To clarify this with examples, any maker extracts products using his or her technical tools, be it a tailor, a blacksmith, a carpenter. So they extract these products from the raw material to turn it into things that products in reality. So this is the being. Let's clarify this being with a story that most of you might know. When one person passed by Michelangelo and he saw him making a statue, and I asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm liberating the statue that is inside the rock." I remember a ship maker who was quite talented, and he said to me, "I do not start by working a saw into the wood until I see the ship." And I asked, "How do you see it?" And he said, "I see it in my mind's eye." So for Heidegger, any technology is the extraction of what is the potential of the raw material to have it in reality. As for the being of modern technology, as per Heidegger's description, he was talking about technology in the 50s. He believes that it does this extraction, but it does it in a compulsory, arbitrary manner to turn something to something else different from its nature into something that is ready for use for other purposes. For example, modern technology extracts oil from the earth and turns it from its crude nature into something ready to use as fuel for planes and vehicles. But in modern technology, the river also turns into energy, and mountains turn into mines. When we have this mindset for the being of technology, which wants to turn everything into something else, for Heidegger, in this case, when this being is prevalent, then our eyes are clouded from the truth. We lose our connection from a God and nature and earth, and we no longer listen to the truth. And Heidegger believes that this trend is the biggest risk to the human being. The being of technology is the biggest risk. And when we now look at this and ask a philosophical question about the being of digital technology. The nature of digital technology and the being of digital technology did not occur to Heidegger. So if the modern technology works on things, in digital technology, the human is within that technology. The human has identity, existence, and technology gives them a platform and relationships with others. And so this existence, where some people talk about digital existence, and they use the Heidegger concept and talked about the Dasein, digital Dasein, and this is the real, most perfect existence called by him by Dasein. And so you can realize this perfect existence. And so when we approach this understanding of the being of digital technology as something that gives humans this sort of being, and we understand that the being of modern technology and digital technology in its nature is this compulsory propensity that wants to turn everything from its nature into a product, into something else. From this perspective, we can see the point of tension and conflict between existence in social media platforms and the being that tries to overcome or use this person and use it for its purposes. So if we look at this philosophical concept in Arab Spring and its political and social dimensions, and we can see the philosophical aspects as well, since it's an ontological phenomenon asking questions about freedom, justice, dignity, and the realization of the human. So I will take the example of Oman during this period of time to test this concept. Why Oman? Because of methodical reasons. When we focus on one country, we can go in depth into it. And also Oman, since 1975, after the end of the Dhafar revolution until 2011, has lived in the shadow of a comprehensive security system that was just extravagant, and that was a reaction to the Dhafar revolution. So this security system throughout these decades were focused on preventing what had happened before, and due to this intimidation, so many things were expropriated or taken away in order not to let that happen again. So when the Omani Spring happened, we can read it in some of its dimensions as a declaration of existence more than a revolution against the political regime. So This event coincided with the prevalence of social media platforms. At the time, these social media platforms have become the tool for Omanis to get information and news, and the space for freedom and talking in public domains has expanded, and there was communication via social media platforms. And when we recall things discussed by Omanis on social media platforms, we find many major issues: the issue of the constitution, the separation of authorities and political participation. All of that took a large space in digital social media. And when we look at the Omani case, in Heidegger's principle, we can see it in two phases. The first phase, where social media platforms were a space for the realization of oneself for Omanis. So Heidegger says that language is the house of the being. So these tools gave the Omani human a platform, a voice, existence, and restoration and ability to express themselves via these platforms. And so these are platforms that realize the conditions for real existence. And as per the Heidegger principle of existence, he believed that existence is a real relationship with others. And in that era, we see the level of solidarity among users of social media, activists on social media. Some people who had solidarity with others only met in prison afterwards, and this is a high level of solidarity, mutual being, if we look at it from the perspective of Heidegger. In the second phase, there was what we can call the Omani panopticon. Panopticon is something that was created by a sociologist to create a prison, and it was oval, and in the middle of it there was a tower, and at the top of the tower there was the guard's room. The guard can see the inmates cannot see him. But there are interventions, and they can understand that there is a guard. Even if the guard is not there, they notice that the prisoners are disciplined because they feel like they are being surveilled. There's surveillance all the time. So Michel Foucault, talking about the panopticon representing authorities in modern societies, he believes that the more the authority is obscured, the more influential it is on psyches. So, looking into the second phase of the Omani Panopticon, it was shaped in regulations and laws after 2012 or during that era, where restrictions were placed on the freedom of expression and opinion. So, we can see also the shaping of the regulatory framework and the authority intervening and participating in the public discourse, and a series of summoning or subpoenas and court trials and imprisonment of a number of activists. So when we apply the Heidegger understanding of technology, we find that the being of technology makes the authority perceive activists on social media as users of these tools, and not as citizens with rights of participation. This panopticon and this control and regulation can be seen in the Omani changing discourse on social media later on. They tend to have metaphors and similes, symbolism, and so this discourse regressed and declined compared to what it was before, due to these laws, because the being is now within the panopticon. And we can apply this to many other countries. So this is the crux of the matter here in the paper. We need to look at the moment of tension and engagement on social media platforms, considering them platforms of real existence, especially when humans do not have real spaces to express themselves. Social media becomes the platforms for existence, but due to this being, they want to transform users into credit ready for use to remain in communication, because this is the life of these platforms, commercially speaking. So we can see that this moment of tension, and the question now is, to what extent did social media platforms give Omanis the possibility of existing in reality, and to what extent did it drag them into a fake, falsified existence? This is the question that the paper asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nasser, for posing this pertinent question. I think the ontological philosophical approach has gone beyond the Omani case, and now these things are going into the official identification. Now we open the floor. Please, we start Mr. Abdullah, Dr. Majid, and Dr. Khalid. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Haider. Thank you to both the speakers, but I'll focus on Mr. Nasser al-Ghailani's. I don't know how I remember Ghainal al-Dimashqi, the Gailan the Damascene, I think, who ended up in a martyrdom, and he died. His tongue was cut off. I hope you have a safe and sound life, but you are trying to approach this through the problem of existence for the Arab citizen in a country called Oman. This was beautiful, the way you presented it. Social media networks have opened the door for a huge number of people to express themselves and to engage in the right of self-expression away from the authorities. But sometimes the technology becomes a tool. The panopticon example. Now technology becomes a tool which will control us. We used to control it. Now if Heidegger was to live 90 years after his departure, I think he will have a different perception of technology. And now that this technology opens avenues for us to think, it opens avenues for the authorities to control us. Social media can liberate us, but our desire to be liberated cannot be achieved unless it's reflected in our reality. This is our dream. Thank you, Dr. Haider. I say, God forgive the organizers to make this session the last one. It should have been the first one. Brother Nasser, you posed an important question on what is this digital technology. I think each technical tool has a different identity. Facebook, we know, a university student who was bullied He was isolated. He started this app to mark and a group of 3, and he to share with them, and then in 2004 he expanded it to the university as a whole. And 2012 it had 1 billion users. For any tool there is a function, and we know how electronic games were used at the level of intelligence or to send messages until it became a tool for terrorism. I attended a long meeting with the head of technical challenges in Russia. It's a technical center, and they analyze new challenges, including terrorist attacks. They discovered some techniques that some young men were radicalized and started giving allegiances to al-Baghdadi in Iraq, and he doesn't even pray or fast. Thank you very much. Thank you. I add my voice that this is one of the most enjoyable sessions and more thought-provocative. What Mr. Nasser said is something which is thought-provocative, and maybe to develop some ideas if we are allowed to interfere in this paper, and this is the new being. There is a process. We imagine 2 processes, one which is spontaneous at the beginning of the social media that even the authorities did not pay attention to. Then we saw that the individual beings and collective beings discover themselves. Some years later, this process was discovered by the authorities and the capital also, not just the authorities. So there was some interventionist approach to what was spontaneous process, gel-dependent model, and then what was spontaneous was corrupted and distorted. So we need to have another reading to understand this phase of social media, similarly to what happened in the Arab revolutions. The authorities in the first phase, the security authorities in most countries were late. A step or 2, they were behind the ability of the youth, the social media. They were more concerned with actual physical demonstrations on the street, and the leadership belonged to older generations. But this technological digital gap was soon filled, and these studies into discovering this collective self or individual self. This is an ideology for the capital, and our brother excelled in studying the engagement so that our individualism or collectivism has changed. You, Nasser, Ahmed, Mahmoud, Sami, Yehuda, we know, but there is a part to you which is not actual, we can say metaphysical, or which is maybe 70% of you is not real. Even when he talks to you, he is still captive to the image online. He cannot laugh spontaneously. He cannot sit down and smoke shisha with it because he is still captive to this image he built on the. Thank you. This is some of the ideas you generate. And thank you, Dr. Khalid. Marshall McLuhan is a famous Canadian scientist, wrote a book, the medium is the message. His idea was the medium, not that's not like Gutenberg created its own world, and unfortunately Foucault remained in control of this, but the McLuhan's philosophical content was not understood, but the medium changed. When the medium is transparent, McLuhan was viewed as how the change in the media changed societies, but how it changed the self, I don't think McLuhan was used because he didn't belong to the field of philosophy and media. Dr. Abdul Nabi. Thank you to both speakers, Dr. Ahmed Al Khaldi, Dr. Nasser Al Ghilani. I have a question, Dr. Ghilani. You talked about 2011. To what extent was the social media available at that time, and how influential have they been? And we know in the 2011 agitation, there were three centers, Muscat, Solal, and Suha. And if social media tools were important in creating this opinion, why were they confined to three centers and did not move further? And linked to this, 2011 in Oman was part of the Arab Spring, but it did not reach public opinion. Why is that? If it was available online, why didn't it take its fair share of interaction and distribution? For Dr. Ahmed Al Khaldi, frankly speaking, the information provided are excellent. How can we create a reverse kind of awareness through social media so that we can distinguish and we be able to select and criticize, etc. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice. You saved the best till last indeed. My question to Dr. Ahmed, this is a response to what we find in these, but I want to add some important points, how and why. These are important. The mixed methods approach and to combine with this quantitative and qualitative in order, also in addition to interviews, one-on-one interviews with some participants, maybe some focus group discussions to know what are the real reasons or motives which leads to impulsive buying or other important things. This is the point I wanted to mention, and I thank you for your comment on that. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have a question for Dr. Ahmed regarding social media. To what extent have it been able to influence consumer behavior? This is known before Before the social media, when you go to a supermarket to buy biscuits, maybe you see another thing and buy it. But to what extent has social media changed these behavior patterns? And was this change negative or positive? As for the methodology, this is according to the methodology of the research. Some rely on the statistical more than the interviews. I think in your research you need a large number, and it's difficult to have interviews with all of them. So you have to resort to numbers more. I thank you both. I have a question to both of them. Dr. Ahmed said that there are comparisons with the image and how you view your body image and self-esteem. But I don't know why there is no comparison with AI. The AI generated content now. The AI can generate images, pictures, sounds, and people compare themselves to this content. To what extent can human beings resist this comparison? And for how long can we remain as human beings? Even at the level of food, there are many attempts for human beings to imitate recipes and food making and use material which is not edible. Just people are obsessed with this. Will there be human beings after a while, or what? Okay, if there is no other questions, I can't see because of the projectors. Thank you, Dr. Haider. My question to Dr. Nasser. Is there a certain approach to what extent social media tools have contributed to change the existing patterns in Oman, and especially the Omani women in 2011? After 2011 events, was there more empowerment of women? Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Nasser, Dr. Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed, twice at least you said research indicate that women are more active in buying and the waste culture in Gulf countries. What are these researches? And secondly, to what extent the epistemic violence, that the positionality of the writer is achieved? Because there is the problem of generalization. When you say the Gulf, this means 6 countries at least. Women are more susceptible to this impulsive buying or this waste culture. So, Mr. Nasser, thank you. Now you applied this concept of being to the period of 2011. What about before 2011 and post 2011? When we return from what is exceptional to what is ordinary, was there being not existent before that, and also the declaration of being needs some sort of measures to measure that. To what extent have this been achieved so that we can say safely that this was a declaration of existence? Is there any evidence in the street or the social media sites, and also the demands which were raised? Thank you very much, Mr. Jason. If there is no other question, let us return to the speakers. We start with Mr. Nasser. 2-3 minutes, please. Thank you very much for your questions. And I would like to say that I do not have answers. All what I had was questions. And we deepen the discussion through this dialogue. The doctor said that each technical tool has a being. If we look at social media as a technical being, yes, each tool of this sort has, but what is the nature of everything? If we say what's the nature of trees differ, but it has some sort of a being which we can say this makes this thing a tree. That the nature of human beings, there's a human being, although human being different. At the level, at the material level, this can change. But if we look at it from the point of view, the nature is one, and that is the one that takes human being from his own self and turns him into wanting to continually be in touch, some sort of an obsession or addiction. And you may find in certain platforms some sort of continuity of expression of your being. Dr. Khalid Lahroub, I agree with you. When we use concepts and approaches, many researchers like Benapticon and others, but when we look at the philosophical aspect, and this is what, not just in the Arab world, even at the global level, these are, and we, philosophically speaking, find ourselves attracted to this technology which requires us to be in touch continuously. Dr. Abdel Nabi, the Omani presence was there on the social media, but it was absent within the Arab Spring. Yes, the presence was focused in certain cities, but Omanis were present largely, although mainly in certain areas, but it was widely spread too. About empowering women, when we look at that period, we'll find that social media allowed women to break the traditional barriers, and women started expressing themselves, their ideas, their political ideas, and social ideas. I think, yes, they have given women empowerment and a voice. As for the declaration of existence, Heidegger says being is the house or the home of language. In that period, every user had his platform through which he can express himself through individual discourse, and so this discourse can be looked at philosophically as a declaration before prior to that did not have the means to participate. I'll close with this point. Heidegger used to see that the being of technology is the bigger threat to man. But Heidegger uses a poet called Holdry. When philosophy reaches a point where you cannot express your idea, you use poetry. Holdry says, wherever there is danger, and Heidegger says that the way out of this threat is to understand the being's understanding of what the technology is and why does it have this addictive. Then we can understand the relationship between the being and technology. Thank you. There are some questions which need deep answers, but I'll be brief. How can we create a reverse awareness? There is not one mechanism, but there should be. The family should play a role, then civil society should play a role, and the educational system. Fourthly, the state or the government. And all of these should work hand in hand, these four pillars, to create programs right from the start. Like, for example, the question of addiction amongst the children and teenagers, even in consumer behavior, and the social media generates the same kind of chemicals in the brain which need to addiction to nicotine or other forms of. So treatment requires different or an integrated system. A deep question, and that is how has it impacted the consumer behavior? I don't know where I'll start. Digital marketing, generally speaking, and social media specifically. To answer your question, we teach two programs, each take 14 weeks. We have to create a market which goes beyond online. There is no limits to time or place or culture or language. Secondly, regarding consumer behavior, there is mixed mode buying, which is for consumers. It means the power is in the hands of the consumer. The information there. Before I buy a certain mobile, I go online and find where is the best condition, the best price, etc. So the power was transferred from the hands of the seller to the consumer. So I can get information online and buy offline or vice versa. So the physical definition of the market is over. Also the self, and my colleague spoke about that, and from the point of view of psychology, social media and digital space produce something called the virtual self. Dr. بدران تحدث عن ذلك. The virtual self, it's a problematic issue, and there are many many ideas. We can summarize that in three schools. Some say that the virtual self is an extension of your real self. How you how you want to see yourself, you paint and on lines, and so it's an extension of your own self. The second school says the virtual self is a liberated. Maybe the male can become female, the religious person can be irreligious, so you can paint a picture of yourself which is different without revealing your real identity because you're liberated from social liberties and restraints and constraints because you are liberated in the digital community. So the digital self is a conversion self. The third school says that the virtual self is different versions of yourself. This is the role theory. Your image as father is different than your image as an engineer at work or a neighbor or whatever. So therefore, you create different images of the same self, and this is the theory of multiple selves. I hope I answered your questions to what the social media can do to the self. The penultimate question, what can we do with AI? This is the biggest calamity of all because AI is dangerous so far as the psychological aspect is it confuses reality with imagination. It creates a virtual reality which can penetrate the awareness of individuals or consumers, and that individual, for example, we all see, for example, virtual girlfriend, I can be whatever you want me to be. So there is distortion between what is reality and what imagine. This will impact not our generation but the next generation. So therefore we should have civil society institutions. Of course, there are positive impacts, but we are here concerned with the negative impacts. And also the question about that. I did not say women are more active, they are more compulsive buyers. They do this compulsive buyer more than women, men in comparison. And also social media contributed to a waste culture in the Gulf. You asked how can we guarantee that these are credible research, such as these are peer reviewed, there are measures, they are published in international journals, so the question of bias is not applicable. I have in the slides the references, but I didn't have time to mention them because I didn't have time. Can we generalize or not? This leads me to what the doctor said. Usually, parametric quantitative research takes enough samples in a way that we can generalize it. In the consumer psychology, we use a quantitative methodology and sample gathering. So yes, the research methodology this way can be generalized. I did not have and to discover the why. My research was the impact of X on Y, X on Z. So therefore, I had to use the quantitative analysis. But if I wanted to know the why, I should have used then a qualitative methodology. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. We now reach the end of the 12th session of the Gulf Forum. I think this was, as the previous ones, it was a successful one. I think day after day, this space for dialogue, which invites the researchers from different Gulf countries, this has become an established tradition, maybe because it's a rare thing. Many people attend and discuss international affairs through the social media. We at the Arab Center are keen to sustain this forum and allow this degree of the freedom to discuss and the diversity of opinion. And as is the case in every session, each track will be documented in a book which documents all the research papers, like the social media in the Gulf and the transformations in the Gulf. We will be in touch with the researchers who presented their papers in both tracks to engage in dialogue with them, to receive the final versions of their papers. If they want to benefit from the discussion, to contribute to their papers, and the two books that we hope to publish, we hope will in the 12 sessions of this forum, we have a small library of books. And maybe in a month's time, we will announce the two themes for the next session. We have a number of ideas, but until now we have not agreed on the final theme or themes. We hope to do that soon. And as is the case, we'll have a call for paper, and we hope to meet with you towards the end of the year 2026. I would like to thank our team, the very big team, who worked really hard to make this forum. I'll start with Dr. Marwan Qabalan. I share with him the supervision of this forum, and we thank my colleagues, Yaran Nassar Sijat Omar, who bore the biggest responsibility of the logistical aspects. And I would like to thank the team of the Gulf Studies, Dr. Abdul Rahman Al-Ibrahim, Dr. Anud Al-Khalifa, Mr. Abdul Rahman Al-Bakr, Dr. Saeed Al-Hashimi, Dr. Fahd Bishara, and also the team from the Arab Center's team who run all these activities, our colleagues in transportation, filming, and managing social Dr. Ahmed Qasim Hussein, Ibrahim Abdul Jawad, Mahmoud Mtawa, Faisal Saudi, and we'd like to thank the two colleagues who manage نغم العقاد ومعتز الناظر. And also we should thank a number of students from the Doha Institute on different programs who volunteer. I don't know their names. I think this is the Algerian girl. Also from security studies. I see her all the time and thank her and all her colleagues. Now we take a group photo. Thank you very much all. Thank you to all the attendees. We thank you for taking the time and trouble and coming all the way. Your presence matters a lot to us, and this has become an annual tradition. I wish you a safe return home. We look forward to meeting you.